Stand back while we destroy this counterfeit passport. Officer Collins's voice slices through the crowded terminal. The TSA officer rips Dr. Nadia Bennett's passport in half before her eyes. He drops the torn document into a metal bin, strikes a match, and sets it ablaze. Flames consume her identity while travelers stare. Arms out, legs spread. Collins barks commands like she's a criminal. His hands violate her personal space during the pat-down, lingering, probing, humiliating. Fellow officers watch with smirks. Fake is fake, doesn't matter how expensive your suit is. Nadia catalogs every detail, badge numbers, faces, witnesses. Her expression remains carved from stone despite the public degradation. You people always try to use fancy degrees to intimidate us. The passport burns to ash as security cameras record everything. Have you ever witnessed discrimination at an airport? What did you do? Nadia's phone buzzes with a text. Landed yet? Meeting the president in 90 minutes. Dr. Nadia Bennett stands in the international arrivals line at Philadelphia International Airport. Her tailored Navy suit shows subtle wrinkles from the 14-hour flight from Ghana. Exhaustion pulls at her shoulders, but her posture remains perfect, a habit formed through years of being scrutinized in spaces where she's often the only black woman. 3 days of saving lives at a medical conference has left her drained. She reviews notes for her White House briefing on her tablet, mentally cataloging the pandemic prevention protocols she's developed. Her expertise in infectious diseases has saved thousands, though few passengers glancing her way would guess her significance. TSA Officer Collins notices her from his position at the checkpoint. He nudges his colleague, Officer Bryant, and tilts his head in Nadia's direction. Got another one with the diplomatic look, Collins mutters. $5 says her papers don't check out. Collins has a history with travelers who look like Nadia. Last month, his supervisor warned him about his disproportionate, random selections, but the conversation ended with winks and understanding nods rather than disciplinary action. Bryant shifts his weight, positioning himself to block the exit lane. When Nadia approaches, Collins straightens his spine, face transforming from bored indifference to rigid authority. "Step aside for routine verification, ma'am," Collins announces loudly, waving through 3 white travelers with barely a glance at their documents. "Remove that, please." He points to her elegant head wrap, though no security protocol requires this. Nadia complies with practiced dignity, aware of curious stares from other passengers. She's been here before, not this specific checkpoint, but this moment of unwarranted scrutiny. She places her belongings in the plastic bin while mentally reviewing her scheduled briefing with the Surgeon General tomorrow. Collins whispers to Bryant, "Got another one trying to use diplomatic excuses. Watch this." Collins takes Nadia's passport between his thumb and forefinger like it's contaminated. His eyes flick between the photo and her face with exaggerated suspicion. "Purpose of your visit to Ghana?" he demands, though the entry and exit stamps clearly document her conference attendance. "I was speaking at the International Infectious Disease Conference in Accra," Nadia replies evenly. "I'm the lead virologist at Johns Hopkins." Collins snorts. "This photo doesn't match you." He taps the passport photo that shows Nadia with straightened hair instead of her current natural style. "The passport is valid, officer. I changed my hairstyle since the photo was taken." Bryant pulls on blue latex gloves with a snap and begins searching her carry-on. He removes her carefully organized medical documents, letting several pages scatter across the inspection table. When Nadia reaches to collect her falling research papers, Collins barks, "Stay still! Do not touch anything!" His hand moves to his belt as if she's threatening him. A young white woman in line behind them watches the interaction, discomfort evident in her eyes. She glances around, seeming to look for someone else who notices what's happening, but then stares at her phone. "I'd like to speak with a supervisor, please," Nadia says, her voice calm but firm. "Supervisor's unavailable," Collins responds immediately. "Questioning my authority creates further suspicion, Dr. Bennett." He deliberately mispronounces her name despite her previous correction. "It's Bennett," she states, "and I'm simply requesting appropriate procedure." "This is procedure for suspicious documentation," Collins says, voice rising. "We determine what's appropriate here." Bryant continues his inspection, handling her stethoscope and medical equipment with careless disregard for their precision instruments. He exchanges a look with Collins that communicates years of shared understanding about which travelers deserve respect and which don't. "These conference credentials could be fabricated," Collins announces, holding up her official medical badge. "We see this type of thing all the time." Security camera silently pivots toward the confrontation as Collins's radio crackles with a message he ignores. "Your passport shows inconsistent border crossing patterns," Collins declares, his authority unchallenged in this small kingdom of conveyor belts and body scanners. "That's a red flag for fraudulent documentation." He points to a spot on the floor directly beneath the brightest overhead light. "Remove your shoes." Nadia notices white travelers passing through the adjacent lane keep their footwear. She slips off her sensible heels while maintaining eye contact with Collins. Her Harvard law training taught her to document everything, file it away for later use. "We'll need a thorough search," Collins announces loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. He signals to Bryant, who approaches with fresh gloves. Rather than directing her to a private screening area standard protocol for secondary inspections, Collins positions her in full view of the main concourse. Travelers slow their pace, some openly staring at the spectacle of a well-dressed professional woman being treated like a criminal. Bryant empties her suitcase completely. Her medical supplies, conference notes, and personal items scatter across the steel table. Her neatly packed belongings become a public display of intimate possessions. "Louis Vuitton luggage, Prada shoes," Collins comments, lifting each item with the tip of his pen. "Pretty expensive stuff. Where'd you get the money for all this?" The implication hangs in the air, toxic and familiar. He holds up her White House visitor badge between two fingers. "And this? Come on now." "That's an authorized security credential," Nadia says, her voice steady despite the heat rising in her chest. "Sure it is," Collins smirks. An older black woman in an airport custodial uniform pauses her cart nearby. Her eyes meet Nadia's, a flash of recognition, of shared experience across generations. The employee slowly reaches for her phone, angling it to capture the scene without drawing attention. Collins notices the movement. His head snaps toward the employee. "Hey! No recording in the security area." He strides toward her, hand outstretched. "Give me that phone, now." Airport Police Officer Diaz approaches, drawn by the escalating tension. His expression remains neutral as Collins quickly pivots. "This woman is being combative during a security screening," Collins explains preemptively. "Possible fraudulent documentation." Officer Diaz takes in the scene, the scattered belongings, the public spectacle, Nadia's composed demeanor. His eyes narrow slightly, but he doesn't intervene directly. Instead, he positions himself nearby, observing with calculated interest. Nadia's phone rings. The caller ID reads AG Office, as Collins snatches it from her hand. Nadia's mind operates on two tracks. The outer track maintains her composed expression, her measured breathing, her professional demeanor. The inner track records every violation with forensic precision. Officer ID, Collins, badge hash 4872. Time, 2:17 p.m. Witnesses, 14 passengers, 3 airline staff, 1 airport police officer. Violations, unlawful search and seizure, destruction of federal property, discriminatory application of security protocols. This moment joins a lifetime of similar memories stored in mental evidence lockers. The Harvard professor who mistook her for janitorial staff despite her faculty ID. The hospital board member who asked if she was lost when she entered the executive meeting room. The real estate agent who suddenly claimed the property was sold when she and James arrived to view it. She makes a silent vow. This will be the last time someone like Collins acts with impunity. Collins answers her ringing phone without permission, holding it like a trophy. "TSA security checkpoint," he says with bureaucratic authority. His expression changes hearing the voice on the other end, deep, authoritative, accustomed to being heated. "Dr. Bennett is being processed for security violations," Collins responds, defensive edge creeping into his voice. "We have protocols that must—" The voice cuts him off. Collins's neck reddens. "She'll be available when we complete our investigation," he states before hanging up. His eyes dart to Officer Diaz, then to his colleague Bryant, who has begun shuffling Nadia's belongings with increased nervousness. Collins approaches Nadia, voice lowered but intense. "Your friends can't help you here. This is federal jurisdiction." While Collins argues with a supervisor over his radio, Officer Diaz approaches Nadia with professional distance. "Ma'am, do you require medical assistance?" he asks, creating a moment of privacy in the crowded terminal. Nadia meets his eyes. "No, but please call this number." She recites digits from memory, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tell them exactly what you've witnessed here." Diaz's expression doesn't change, but he nods imperceptibly before moving away. From a secluded position near the airport offices, Officer Diaz makes the call. The line connects immediately. "This is Attorney General Bennett," answers a voice that commands attention without raising its volume. "Sir, this is Airport Police Officer Miguel Diaz at Philadelphia International," he says, eyes scanning for observers. "I'm calling about your wife." The AG's voice remains measured but cold as ice. "Officer Diaz, I need every detail and every name. Start from the beginning." Diaz provides a concise, factual account while watching the security checkpoint from his vantage point. In Washington, D.C., the Attorney General ends the call and turns to his assistant. "Cancel my next 3 meetings and get me Philadelphia's head of Homeland Security now." Collins senses something shifting beneath the surface of this routine harassment. The woman's composure unnerves him. Most travelers break down, cry, plead, grow angry, giving him justification to escalate. Dr. Bennett's calm feels like a challenge to his authority. "Your passport shows signs of tampering," he declares, inventing new violations. "We'll need extended verification procedures." He gestures for Bryant to escort Nadia to a glass-walled holding room, a fishbowl where detained travelers become cautionary spectacles for others. The transparency intended as accountability instead creates public humiliation. "Standard procedure for suspicious travelers," Collins explains to the gathering audience of delayed passengers. Bryant's movements have grown hesitant. He's witnessed Collins's special attention for certain travelers before, but something about this woman's quiet dignity makes him uncomfortable. Still, he complies, career preservation overriding moral discomfort. Collins retrieves a clipboard and begins formal documentation for passport destruction. "Procedural necessity when fraudulent travel documents are identified," he explains loudly for the benefit of nearby travelers. Airport Supervisor Martinez hurries toward the growing disturbance, walkie-talkie crackling with concerned reports from other staff. "What's the situation here?" Martinez asks, tired eyes taking in the scene. Collins shifts into his well-practiced professional persona. Subject presented suspicious documentation. When questioned, she exhibited textbook evasive behaviors. Attempted to use academic credentials to intimidate officers. Possible flight risk. Martinez glances at Nadia, then at his watch. 6 more hours on shift, 4 incidents already requiring paperwork, and a staffing shortage in Terminal B. The path of least resistance beckons. "Proceed with verification protocols," Martinez sighs without directly addressing Nadia. "Just keep the disruption minimal." As Martinez retreats, the older airport employee who attempted to film earlier slips into the staff break room. She sends the video she managed to capture to both a local news contact and an email address at the Department of Justice, labeled "Urgent Civil Rights Violation in Progress." "May I have some water?" Nadia asks Collins. "And access to bathroom facilities?" "Security protocols during ongoing investigation restrict movement," Collins replies, satisfaction flickering across his face. Once we complete our assessment of your situation, basic accommodations can be considered. Nadia's continued composure irritates him like an itch he can't scratch. Collins's supervisor receives a call from airport management. There's something you need to know about the woman in holding room 3. Collins performs the passport burning ritual with theatrical flair. He wants observers to witness his power, to understand the consequences of challenging his authority. When we identify fraudulent documents, he announces to the small crowd that's gathered, they must be destroyed immediately. That's federal security protocol. He drops what remains of Nadia's passport into a metal trash bin positioned prominently in the security area. His movements are deliberate, designed for maximum visibility. He pours his remaining coffee over the document, watching brown liquid saturate the pages. The silver lighter appears in his hand with a practiced flick. The flame catches the coffee-soaked paper, sending acrid smoke curling toward the ceiling. Collins meets Nadia's eyes through the glass wall as her identity documents blacken and curl. Standard procedure for fraudulent documents, he declares loud enough for everyone to hear. Travelers exchange uncomfortable glances. The young white woman who witnessed the earlier confrontation now holds her phone at waist level, recording despite Officer Bryant's attempts to position himself to block her view. I'd like your full name and badge number for my records, please, Nadia states calmly through the glass partition. This simple request infuriates Collins. He's accustomed to collecting information, not providing it. The role reversal feels like insubordination. Interfering with security procedures is grounds for detainment, he snaps, knuckles whitening around his clipboard. You're already facing serious violations. I wouldn't add to the list. Officer Diaz returns to the main security area, positioning himself near the exit with a clear view of the holding room. His stance communicates readiness, attention focused entirely on the unfolding situation. Collins notices Diaz's presence and feels a flicker of paranoia. The power dynamics are shifting in ways he doesn't understand. He's losing control of the narrative. We need additional personnel, Collins mutters into his radio. Potential security situation developing in Checkpoint 4. Nadia watches as Bryant begins bagging her personal items, her medical research, her diplomatic credentials, her presentation materials, all labeled as evidence with handwritten tags. This constitutes illegal seizure of personal and professional property, she states clearly, ensuring her voice carries to nearby witnesses. I do not consent to this search or seizure. Collins laughs, the sound sharp and dismissive. Consent isn't relevant in matters of national security, ma'am. Through the terminal windows, a black SUV with government plates screeches to a halt at the departure curb. Airport Director Simmons rushes toward the security area, dress shoes clicking against polished floors. 2 senior staff members struggle to match his pace. His face bears the expression of a man who's just discovered a ticking bomb in his building. Collins sees the approaching officials and misinterprets their urgency as reinforcement. He straightens his uniform shirt, preparing to receive commendation for his vigilance. Sir, we've detained a traveler attempting to enter with fraudulent documentation, Collins begins as Simmons approaches. I've already implemented Level 3 protocols and... Simmons brushes past Collins without acknowledgement, eyes fixed on the glass holding room and the woman inside. Bryant, more perceptive than his colleague, recognizes the shift in atmosphere. He begins gathering Nadia's scattered belongings with sudden care, arranging them neatly in her suitcase. His movements communicate a desperate attempt to distance himself from what's happening. You'll need to sign these forms, Collins tells Nadia through the glass partition, oblivious to the changing tide. We're transferring you to a federal facility for extensive questioning. He slides paperwork under the glass. Homeland Security has entire departments dedicated to document fraud. They'll want to know where you obtained such sophisticated forgeries. The growing crowd of travelers shows visible discomfort. A businessman in a charcoal suit speaks up. This doesn't seem right. She asked for a supervisor 20 minutes ago. Others nod in agreement. Phones continue recording the scene from multiple angles. TSA Supervisor Wallace finally arrives, immediately assessing the situation with alarm. His complexion pales as he takes in the burnt passport remains, the detained woman, and the approaching airport director. "Officer Collins, step aside," Wallace orders, voice strained. "I'm in the middle of processing a security threat," Collins responds without looking up from his paperwork. "My investigation is ongoing." Wallace checks his phone's 6 missed calls, 4 text messages, all marked urgent. The most recent simply reads, "AG arriving now, damage control." Would you have recorded this incident or stepped in to help? Nadia observes the power dynamics shifting around her. Still maintaining perfect composure, she addresses Wallace directly. "Sir, may I retrieve my phone to inform my husband of the delay? He's expecting me at the White House in less than an hour." The terminal doors burst open as Attorney General James Bennett strides in, flanked by federal agents and airport security. Attorney General James Bennett enters the terminal like a controlled storm. 6'3", his tailored charcoal suit and commanding presence part the crowd without effort. His expression carries the cold fury of a man accustomed to wielding power with surgical precision. 4 Homeland Security officials and 3 FBI agents follow in tight formation. Their synchronized movements speak of extensive training and absolute loyalty to the man leading them. Collins remains oblivious, still shuffling papers with bureaucratic self-importance. He doesn't look up until Wallace frantically whispers in his ear, "That's Attorney General Bennett heading this way with federal agents." The color drains from Collins's face as he connects the dots. He looks from Wallace to Nadia, then to the approaching federal contingent. His Adam's apple bobs as he swallows hard. Bryant immediately steps away from the holding room, hands raised slightly in a universal gesture of surrender and non-involvement. "I was just following orders," his posture seems to say. James reaches the security checkpoint, badge already extended though everyone present knows exactly who he is. He moves directly to the holding room where Nadia stands. Their eyes meet through the glass, a silent communication born from years of partnership. He touches the glass briefly with his palm, then transforms fully into his professional role, shoulders squaring as he turns to face the TSA officers. "Identify yourselves," he commands, voice carrying the weight of federal authority. Every officer present immediately produces identification. "I'm Attorney General James Bennett. My office has received reports of civil rights violations occurring at this security checkpoint." His words fall precise as hammer blows. "Open this door immediately." Wallace fumbles with the electronic lock, hands trembling as he swipes his keycard. Collins steps forward with a last desperate attempt at control. "Sir, we were following security protocols for suspicious documentation. The subject presented a passport with irregularities that—" James cuts him off with a raised hand. "I wrote half those protocols during my Senate tenure, Officer Collins. I know exactly what they permit and what they don't." He produces a slim leather folder from his inner pocket and opens it to reveal a backup copy of Nadia's diplomatic passport. He holds it beside Collins's incident report, watching the officer's expression crumble. "My wife always travels with duplicate documentation, a habit developed over decades of international humanitarian work." The revelation ripples through the gathered crowd. Whispers spread as understanding dawns. Nadia steps from the holding room, professional dignity intact despite the ordeal. She stands beside her husband, their matched wedding bands now conspicuously visible. "I am Dr. Nadia Bennett, Presidential Advisor on Global Health Security," she states for the record, voice carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent terminal. "I was returning from Ghana where I led a WHO emergency response team addressing a potential outbreak." She recites each violation with meticulous precision, never raising her voice. The calm delivery makes the abuse even more shocking to the witnesses. "Officer Collins detained me without cause, destroyed my federal passport without authorization, denied me communication and basic needs, and conducted an illegal search while making multiple discriminatory comments." Witnesses step forward. The older airport employee who captured video, The young woman who recorded from the line, a businessman who overheard Collins's remarks. Their phones and testimonies are collected by FBI agents with practiced efficiency. Officer Diaz approaches James directly. Sir, I witnessed the incident from its beginning. Officer Collins's actions violated at least 7 TSA protocols and potentially several federal statutes. I attempted intervention through appropriate channels but was overridden. Airport Director Simmons hovers nearby, face ashen with the realization of what has transpired under his authority. The lawsuit calculations visibly flash behind his eyes. The Attorney General turns to airport executives. This isn't just about my wife. I want every incident report from this checkpoint for the past 3 years by tomorrow morning. Airport Director Simmons stands before a hastily assembled press conference, sweat beading along his hairline despite the aggressive air conditioning. Camera lights create harsh shadows across his face. Philadelphia International Airport extends our sincerest apologies to Dr. Nadia Bennett for the inexcusable treatment she experienced today, he reads from prepared remarks. The actions taken by certain TSA personnel violated our protocols, our values, and potentially federal law. Behind the scenes, airport executives huddle with legal counsel in emergency sessions. Risk management teams calculate potential damages, while PR specialists craft crisis responses. Homeland Security officials establish a command center in a repurposed conference room. Statements are taken from every witness, digital evidence collected and cataloged. Collins and Bryant are immediately suspended, credentials confiscated, escorted from the premises by security personnel who once took orders from them. Attorney General James Bennett stands in the terminal's administrative offices, jacket removed, sleeves rolled up. He speaks with the measured precision of a man who has argued before the Supreme Court 9 times and won 7. What happened to my wife today wasn't an isolated incident, he tells the assembled airport board members. It represents a systemic failure of oversight, training, and accountability. He activates the speakerphone on the conference table. Mr. President, I'm here with the Philadelphia Airport leadership. I believe you wanted to address them directly. The president's voice fills the room, carrying the full weight of executive authority. Board members straighten instinctively. News vans gather outside the terminal as the story spreads across social media channels. #Amara effect trends nationally before someone corrects it to #Nadia effect. Video clips from multiple angles show Collins burning the passport, performing the invasive search, denying basic courtesy. Dr. Nadia Bennett addresses a smaller gathering of reporters, composed and articulate despite her ordeal. What concerns me isn't what happened to me personally, she explains. I had protection most travelers don't. My husband's position, my professional connections. What about everyone else who faces this treatment without those advantages? Her statement resonates widely, transforming the narrative from a personal incident involving a prominent figure to a systemic problem affecting countless unnamed travelers. Data analysts from the Justice Department Civil Rights Division pore over 3 years of security checkpoint records. Their findings reveal a disturbing pattern. Collins had selected minority travelers for secondary screening at rates far exceeding statistical probability. Officer Collins conducted random screenings on black women at 17 times the rate of white male travelers, the lead analyst reports during a closed-door briefing. This pattern persisted despite multiple passenger complaints. Internal TSA records show these complaints were consistently downgraded, minimized, or buried entirely. Supervisors labeled them subjective perceptions rather than actionable reports. The paper trail leads through multiple levels of management. Bryant cooperates with investigators in exchange for potential leniency. In a recorded deposition, he reveals the unwritten profile guidelines shared among certain officers. Collins called them instincts, but they were really just biases, Bryant admits. He trained new officers to watch for specific indicators that were really just racial and cultural markers. Janice Williams, the 30-year airport veteran who filmed the incident, comes forward publicly. Her personal archives contain documentation of dozens of similar incidents spanning decades. I started keeping records in 1997, Williams explains, presenting meticulously organized files. Nobody would listen to verbal reports, so I created my own evidence system. Her detailed records become crucial evidence for the expanding investigation. Patterns emerge showing concentrated problems at specific checkpoints under particular supervisors. Officer Diaz receives a commendation from the Department of Homeland Security for appropriate intervention despite organizational pressure. His account of attempting to report previous incidents through proper channels reveals systemic failures in the complaint process. The TSA director holds an emergency press conference announcing comprehensive review of training protocols and complaint procedures across all U.S. airports. "What occurred in Philadelphia violates everything we stand for as an organization," she states. "We are implementing immediate reforms to ensure it never happens again." Congressional oversight committees schedule hearings to address travel security bias. Representatives from both parties recognize the political necessity of responding to public outrage. The video of Collins burning a passport while smirking has become this year's defining image of government overreach. A class action lawsuit forms as previous victims come forward, identified through Williams's documentation and newly released security footage. Law firms compete for lead counsel position on what promises to be a landmark civil rights case. Collins hires high-profile attorney who claims his client was following implicit training directives and taking the fall for institutional practices. The congressional hearing room buzzes with anticipation. Network cameras broadcast live to a nation transfixed by the unfolding scandal. Collins sits stiffly beside his attorney, attempting to project professional composure despite the visible sweat darkening his collar. "Officer Collins," Congresswoman Harris begins, "please explain the TSA procedure for handling suspected fraudulent passports." Collins leans toward the microphone. "When documentation appears suspicious, we follow escalation protocols to verify authenticity." "And these protocols include burning passports in trash cans?" Harris asks, her tone cutting through his bureaucratic language. "In cases of confirmed fraudulent documentation, rendering the document unusable prevents its reintroduction into the system." Screens around the hearing room display the TSA handbook, specific passages highlighted. "Could you point to the section authorizing destruction of travel documents by burning them with coffee and a personal lighter?" Collins shifts uncomfortably. "It's standard procedure." "It's not in the handbook," Harris interrupts. "In fact, the handbook explicitly prohibits destruction of any government-issued identification, directing officers to confiscate and submit suspicious documents through official channels. Isn't that correct?" His attorney whispers urgently in Collins's ear. The disgraced officer adjusts his tie. "Perhaps my training differed from current written standards." Bryant testifies next, his demeanor markedly different from his former colleague's defiance. "We were taught to identify certain travelers as higher risk based on factors that weren't in the official guidelines," Bryant admits. "These practices were passed down through informal training, never documented." "Could you elaborate on these undocumented factors?" Senator Reynolds asks. "Race, national origin, religious markers like head coverings," Bryant responds, avoiding Collins's glare. "We disguise these selections as random or documented vague behavioral indicators to justify them." His testimony implicates several supervisors who encouraged the practice while maintaining plausible deniability. Internal communications reveal coded language used to discuss targeting specific demographic groups without explicit discriminatory terminology. Collins grows increasingly agitated as his professional facade crumbles under questioning. "Dr. Bennett exhibited classic suspicious behaviors," he insists, voice rising. "Her travel patterns were irregular, her documentation questionable." "Her documentation was diplomatic grade and completely legitimate," Representative Torres interjects. "What specific behaviors justified your actions?" "She was argumentative, uncooperative." The video evidence shows Dr. Bennett speaking calmly throughout the encounter, Torres counters. Was maintaining eye contact and requesting a supervisor what you consider argumentative? Collins's composure fractures. These people come through thinking rules don't apply to them. These people, Torres repeats, letting the phrase hang in the air. Collins realizes his error too late. The room falls silent as his underlying attitudes surface through this unguarded moment. Supervisor Wallace testifies about institutional pressures that prioritized processing speed over proper procedure review. We were evaluated on throughput metrics, Wallace explains. Officers who processed travelers quickly received favorable reviews, regardless of methodology. And did this create incentives to overlook civil rights concerns? Senator Blackwell asks. Yes, Wallace admits. I dismissed previous complaints against Officer Collins because replacing him would have disrupted staffing levels. I prioritized operational efficiency over addressing pattern complaints. Attorney General James Bennett presents the Justice Department's comprehensive investigation findings. Charts display statistical anomalies in screening patterns across multiple airports. Video compilations show similar incidents targeting minority travelers. Dr. Nadia Bennett's testimony provides the hearing's most powerful moment. She speaks with clinical precision about the psychological impact of discriminatory treatment. The trauma isn't just in that single moment of humiliation, she explains, her medical expertise lending additional weight to her words. It accumulates across lifetimes, affects physical health outcomes, and damages trust in governmental institutions. She speaks not as a victim seeking sympathy, but as an expert witness quantifying harm. Her testimony creates a stark contrast, her professional accomplishments and humanitarian work juxtaposed against how she was treated because of her appearance. The committee's findings are unequivocal. Collins faces criminal charges for destruction of government documents, civil rights violations, and filing false reports. His supervisors receive disciplinary actions for negligent oversight. Bryant, while still facing consequences, receives reduced penalties for his cooperation. As Collins leaves the hearing in disgrace, his attorney's phone rings with news that 3 other airports have identified similar patterns among their staff. 6 months after the Philadelphia incident, Transportation Secretary Rodriguez stands at a podium unveiling the Traveler Dignity Act implementation guidelines. Behind him, digital screens display the comprehensive TSA reforms being implemented nationwide. Every traveler deserves security with dignity, Rodriguez states. These reforms ensure that safety and respect are not competing priorities but essential partners. The new accountability measures transform airport security operations across the country. TSA officers now wear body cameras during all screening interactions. Footage uploads automatically to secure servers accessible to a newly formed civilian oversight board. The anonymous reporting system operates in multiple languages through both digital kiosks and mobile applications. Travelers and employees can document concerns without fear of retaliation, each report triggering mandatory review protocols. Janice Williams, the airport employee whose documentation proved crucial to the case, now heads Philadelphia International's new Civil Rights Compliance Office. Her decades of careful observation translated into formal authority. We're not just responding to incidents anymore, Williams explains during a training session for compliance officers. We're preventing them through continuous monitoring and immediate intervention. Her team analyzes screening patterns daily, identifying statistical anomalies that might indicate bias. Officers whose selection patterns show demographic disproportions receive immediate review and retraining. Officer Diaz, promoted to the TSA's training division, develops intervention strategies for officers witnessing potential misconduct. The bystander effect is powerful, Diaz tells a class of new officers, Collins's infamous video playing on the screen behind him. Your responsibility isn't just following protocol yourself, but ensuring everyone around you does too. The training emphasizes the shield or report mandate. Officers must either intervene to protect travelers' rights or formally document violations they witness. Failure to do either now constitutes grounds for termination. Statistical monitoring systems track officer interactions across all security checkpoints. Algorithm-driven analysis flags patterns invisible to human observation, subtle biases in secondary screening selections, disparities in processing times based on traveler demographics, inconsistent application of protocols. Regular blind testing through undercover travelers ensures compliance without announcement or warning. These travelers represent diverse backgrounds and document their experiences through standardized metrics, creating ongoing performance data. Community feedback sessions become mandatory quarterly events at major airports. Civil rights organizations, traveler advocates, and security experts participate in public forums addressing evolving concerns and recommendations. Dr. Nadia Bennett establishes the Travel Dignity Foundation, providing legal support to affected travelers without resources to pursue complaints individually. The organization pairs medical professionals with legal experts to document both the immediate and long-term psychological impacts of discriminatory treatment. Quantifying harm is essential to addressing it, Dr. Bennett explains during the foundation's launch. We're creating evidence that transforms individual experiences into actionable data. Attorney General James Bennett uses his position to prioritize transportation's civil rights enforcement across federal agencies. Task forces coordinate between Homeland Security, Justice Department, and Transportation to address systemic issues holistically rather than in bureaucratic silos. The reforms spread beyond airports to border crossings, train stations, and other security checkpoints. Standard evaluation metrics now include dignity measures alongside traditional security outcomes. The Collins incident became our turning point. TSA Director Jackson acknowledges in an internal memo, "We cannot change our past failures, but they've become the foundation for building a more effective and equitable system." At Philadelphia International Airport, a new training class of TSA officers watches the Collins footage as example of what their profession must never become. 1 year later, Dr. Nadia Bennett passes through Philadelphia International Airport's security checkpoint. The transformation is immediately apparent. Gone is the atmosphere of tension and arbitrary power. In its place stands a model of professional security operations. The diverse staff moves with purpose and courtesy. Transparent procedures are explained clearly to each traveler. Digital signs display passenger rights in multiple languages. Body cameras record every interaction, their presence a constant reminder of accountability. Nadia places her belongings in the scanner bin without the familiar tightening in her chest that such moments once triggered. The officer checking IDs recognizes her, not for her husband's position, but for her own accomplishments. "Dr. Bennett, thank you for your work on the tuberculosis prevention protocols," he says with genuine respect. "My sister's a nurse in Ghana implementing your research." Nearby, a young black female traveler receives respectful, professional treatment from an officer previously trained by Diaz. The interaction proceeds with efficiency and dignity. No performative authority, no unnecessary scrutiny, just straightforward security protocol. Janice Williams, now in her management role, spots Nadia and approaches with a tablet displaying statistical data. "Dr. Bennett, our quarterly metrics show significant improvement," Williams shares. "Complaint rates down 87%, processing consistency across demographic groups at 94% compliance, and employee satisfaction scores at a 5-year high." They discuss the ongoing challenges and successes of implementing reform across a complex system. Williams describes how the Philadelphia model has been replicated at 18 major airports nationwide. "The resistance to change wasn't as strong as we expected," Williams admits. "Most officers wanted to do their jobs properly all along. They just needed clear guidelines and consistent enforcement." Attorney General James Bennett joins them, arriving not as emergency response but as Nadia's travel companion for an upcoming medical conference. He carries 2 coffee cups, handing one to his wife. "The Denver International case concluded yesterday," he shares, referencing a recent implementation of the new accountability system. "The problematic officer was identified and removed before any major incident occurred." Prevention instead of reaction, Nadia notes with satisfaction. They watch travelers moving through the checkpoint, business people, families, students, tourists, each receiving the same professional treatment regardless of appearance or origin. Nadia reflects on her decision to pursue systemic change rather than personal vengeance. The easier path would have been accepting a settlement and allowing the story to fade from public consciousness. Instead, she leveraged the incident into transformation. The goal was never punishment, but transformation, she tells a passing reporter who recognizes them. Security systems only work when they recognize the humanity in everyone they aim to protect. James takes her hand, their partnership strengthened through shared purpose. What began as a traumatic incident evolved into a mission that aligned their professional expertise toward a common goal. "Ready for your keynote?" he asks as they walk toward their gate. "Always," she smiles, "though I suspect my security experiences will generate as many questions as my medical research." The airport continues its operations around them, a public space now truly serving the public, where security and dignity reinforce, rather than oppose each other. True security recognizes the humanity in everyone it aims to protect. The importance of documenting injustice cannot be overstated. When Dr. Nadia Bennett faced discrimination at Philadelphia International Airport, multiple witnesses captured evidence that transformed an individual trauma into a catalyst for national reform. Not everyone walks through airports with the protection of powerful connections or prestigious titles. Most travelers facing discriminatory treatment lack direct access to the Attorney General or media platforms to amplify their experiences. Community vigilance becomes their only shield against abuse of authority. The footage recorded by everyday travelers proved more powerful than any official testimony, civil rights attorney Leticia Ramirez explains. These impromptu documentarians created undeniable evidence that couldn't be dismissed as subjective perception. Since its founding, the Travel Dignity Foundation has assisted 347 travelers in pursuing justice and emotional recovery. Their cases span 42 airports across the country, revealing patterns that might otherwise have remained invisible to oversight systems. The Foundation's success statistics demonstrate measurable improvements nationwide. Secondary screening selection disparities have decreased by 64% at participating airports. Complaint resolution timeframes shortened from an average of 143 days to 17 days. Officer retraining programs show 91% effectiveness in correcting problematic behavior patterns. "We're seeing a cultural shift within security organizations," explains Dr. Martin Chen, the Foundation's Psychological Impact Assessment Director. When accountability becomes consistent, behavior changes permanently rather than temporarily. Brief testimonials from travelers who benefited from new protections appear on screens throughout the terminal. "I was always anxious traveling with my hijab," shares Fatima Khoury, a medical student. "Now I feel the system protects rather than targets me." "As a black businessman who flies weekly, the difference is night and day," reports Terrence Washington, a technology executive. "I'm no longer automatically diverted for random checks at every airport." Attorney General James Bennett continues pushing legislative reforms addressing broader discrimination issues beyond transportation. His Justice Department initiatives now target discriminatory practices in housing, lending, and employment through similar data-driven approaches. His current focus, working with congressional allies to pass the Equal Treatment in Public Services Act, would extend the successful transportation model to all federal agencies interacting with the public. The principles remain consistent across contexts, Bennett explains. Clear standards, transparent accountability, and consequences for violations. The final scene reveals Dr. Nadia Bennett mentoring young women pursuing careers in medicine and public health at Johns Hopkins. The glass-walled classroom overlooks the hospital where her viral containment protocols have become the international standard. "Systems only change when we refuse to let injustice remain comfortable," she tells her students. "Your expertise gives you power, but how you use that power determines your legacy." Did this story of justice and systemic change move you? This is just one of many powerful narratives we bring to light at Beat Stories, where we transform real-world injustices into compelling accounts that demand attention and action. Every week, we deliver stories that expose discrimination, celebrate resilience, and show how individual courage can transform broken systems. Our community doesn't just consume content. We discuss, support, and mobilize around the issues that matter. Hit that subscribe button now to join thousands of viewers committed to making a difference. Your engagement helps us continue our mission of turning uncomfortable truths into powerful catalysts for change. Like this video to help it reach more viewers who need to see what happens when we hold power accountable. Share it with someone who needs this reminder that one person's stand can transform an entire system. Beat Stories, where truth breaks through.
You've seen the story. Now what will you do with it? At Beat Stories, we believe reflection is good, but action is better. Subscribe, share, speak, because awareness is only the first step.